Is a declining birth rate a blessing or a curse? Pervasive theories on population collapse are causing alarm in wealthy nations. But if the global population is growing, are we ignoring solutions through immigration or changing dynamics in our workforce? Do we need more people or fewer, more prosperous ones who will put less pressure on our planet? I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's Newsmaker is our global population. It can be a delicate debate, with religion and culture weighing heavily on the question of whether having large families is good or bad for our societies and for our planet. Declining fertility rates pose potential obstacles for our economies, with governments having fewer taxpayers to accommodate more retired people. But it could be argued that managing depopulation presents an opportunity to ease the pressure on our planet, with fewer but more prosperous taxpayers able to support the elderly, while immigration can help spread the wealth of richer countries onto the developing world. Now remember, concerns about where our population and demographics are going date back decades. In the 1960s, the overriding fear was that a population explosion would lead to catastrophe. In a seminal book called The Population Bomb, the demographer Paul Ehrlich predicted it was going to lead to war, famine, and complete depletion of natural resources. And it's true that some of that has happened. Our current population of 8 billion has caused man-made global warming, leading to a predicted 6th mass extinction, and we are struggling to try to bring the planet back into balance. Well, over the last 300 years, the population has indeed exploded. In the year 1700, there were just 610 million people. But once the Industrial Revolution took hold, combined with improvements in agriculture, healthcare, and women joining the workforce, the rate of growth began to slow. Until recently, that didn't mean that the population explosion wasn't still taking place. People were having slightly fewer children, but there were by now so many people that the overall population was heading to totally unsustainable numbers. I'm not so sure when you talk about the growing populations in developing countries, what about bringing some of those populations, opening up a little more immigration? And you could argue that could be a win-win, because not only do we grow in a country like the United States where you are, we don't only grow our population the way you think is necessary, but we also can allow people from developing countries to earn the wages in wealthy countries that will be brought back to the developing world so that everyone can effectively prosper. It could be a win-win.
That would work if we were at the population scenario we were 10 years ago. But as I mentioned, Latin America fell below repopulation rate all the way back in 2019. They are dealing, there was this great article in The Economist recently, they are dealing with hugely stressed social security systems because of their aging populations. We are just exporting our own laziness to developing countries that are less able to deal with the fact that they are putting taxes and state dollars into training people during non-productive childhood years. Then we get their productive labor as adults, and now they have to deal with an even older population because we've been draining their countries. But you could say, okay, we'll only take immigrants from countries that are still above repopulation rate. But because those countries are predominantly under 5,000 USD per year, now you've created an economic incentive for Europe and the United States to prevent those countries from ever escaping poverty. I told a reporter this, and they're like, do you really think the United States would sabotage the developing countries' economies just for the sake of our own? And I was like, yes, of course they would. That's like our MO. Like,
okay. Let me ask Jennifer then about this. And Jennifer, if you can comment as well on the analysis that says we are only, as a global society, I'm not just going to say about the US, we are only thinking about the survival of our own economies and our species as well, at the expense of the planet and the other species, some of which we've run into extinction. For this edition of the Newsmakers, I'd like to thank all three of my panelists so much for being with us. Fascinating discussion. Our viewers, of course, for joining us as well. Remember, you can follow us on X, and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Andrea Sankey. We'll see you next time.